Am I the a-hole stories? Am I the a-hole for not letting my homeless friend move in because I hate her kid? Obviously, there are a lot of variables to the story. I'm 24, female, and I have been working since I was 16. My dad passed away on my 17th birthday, but prior to his passing, he taught me everything there was to know. He was a jack of all trades. I have done electric, plumbing, mechanic work, concrete and basic carpentry. My dad and I always loved this one house that had been on the market since I was super young. He always said that one day it would be ours. When he passed, we got an insurance settlement. When I turned 18, I bought that house outright. My mom didn't come with me because it was too much for her to process, but she lives right up the road, so since I was 18, I have been picking away at this house little by little. There was a lot of work to be done and it would be so much easier if my dad was still here to help, but hey, we finally got our house. My friend has a 11-year-old kid. I have never been a fan of her due to the fact that at her age, she still throws herself on the floor at supermarkets, screaming bloody murder when she doesn't get her way. She is an embarrassment, to say the least, but I tried with her. I tried to like her despite all her tantrums and entitlement. One year, she asked me for one of those really expensive doll houses, like $500, and I got it, just to have her turn around and bust it 20 minutes later for being the wrong color. The tip of the iceberg was when I was conned into taking her one day when I was visiting my 7-year-old brother in the hospital who was just diagnosed with cancer at the time. He's good now, and when she saw him lying in that hospital bed all doped up, she immediately said, "What a drama queen. He is obviously faking it." I dropped her off and never took her again. I'm disgusted by her. So, my friend just became homeless. She didn't tell me the variables that caused this, but she's homeless regardless. She calls me up and asks if her and her kid can come live with me for a while. I didn't mean for it to come off as harsh as it did, but my response was, nope. I've seen how your child acts and I'm not having her destroy the one place that reminds me of my father, or interrupting my solitude for not getting her way. Sorry. Again, I didn't mean for it to be that harsh, but that's how it happened regardless. So she flips out. Says I'm trying to make out like her kid is Satan. She knows what her kid said to my brother too, and said that her kid didn't mean it, which makes it worse in my eyes. She is telling everyone that I am a POS for allowing her child to be homeless when I have the means to accommodate. The house has 6 bedrooms. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Call me cynical, but it's too much of a coincidence that your friend became homeless, just when you finished renovating your house. Hi cynical, I'm jaded. I thought the exact same thing. It definitely isn't a coincidence. Her friend knows OP is all alone in an, apparently, 6-bedroom house. She isn't looking for a layover, she's looking to squat on OP's good graces as long as she can. Someone who would pawn off a kid on a person going into the hospital to see a child who's sick with cancer. This is not a considerate, thoughtful adult who will know not to overstay their welcome. This is not someone who pays rent and becomes a good tenant over time. This is not someone who's grateful for a friend who has already reached the end of their tether with your child. If this kills the friendship, so be it, it's a hill worth dying on. Not the a-hole, but I might be biased because I can't stand kids. The kid has proven herself to be entitled, bratty, and destructive. I wouldn't want that in my home, either. Your story about your dad made me teary-eyed. Good for you for being able to buy the house. I'm sure your dad would have been super proud of you. Thank you. Not the a-hole. The kid seems terrible, don't allow them in your home. Kid is 11 and was enabled to this behavior by mom. Point the finger in that direction. Call CPS. Apply some pressure to mom so she gets her act together and end this BS enabling behavior. She is just a kid, yeah, my butt. If you don't teach your kid empathy and good behavior, kid will end up that way. 10 cookies. She only regurgitated the things her mom said. Kids do that. So OP, look out for her mom. Kid is the lesser evil here and can still be mended, not saying it should be you, but she should grow up somewhere else. Now for the next story. Would I be the a-hole if I tell my stepdaughter she is no longer welcome in my home after stealing? The title sums it up pretty well. For context though, stepdaughter is a full-grown adult with a child and home of her own. Over the last few years now I'd say, I've noticed things from the house going missing. I never thought much of it, as I figured I'd just misplaced them. It was mainly makeup and other cosmetics / toiletries and such, small items. Maybe the odd small amount of money. However, the more it continued, the more I noticed there was potentially more going on than me misplacing items. For example, when she came to stay, I'd notice my makeup drawer in the bathroom would be left ajar, things in my room would be moved about and evidence of rummaging. Put it down to her looking for sanitary pads or such. Then one day I opened my makeup drawer and found half the stuff that was meant to be in there. Well, wasn't. Okay, maybe I moved them to my room. Nope, in fact, even more missing from my room. Now is when I was starting to get suspicious. No way I had lost that many items in my own home. I told my husband and he kind of dismissed it. There was no proof other than that the items weren't there. A week later, she comes to stay for a couple of days while her son is at his dad's. She leaves her bag on the floor. I walk past and an item catches my eye. Because it belonged to me. I picked the item up and asked her about it. She claimed she had gotten it ages ago, however the kicker was that, it was part of a pair and I still had the other one. After more pressing she admitted it must be mine because she didn't have the partner, but didn't know how she had it. This is when I went back to my husband with proof. However, he dismissed again saying it was only one item and she could have picked it up by mistake. From a closed drawer? Good one. I was frustrated but didn't want to cause a fight, so just told her to not touch anything that wasn't hers, but made it clear to my husband I didn't trust her. However, the more time has passed, the lack of trust has just increased, to the point where when I was organizing things in the bathroom the other day, I genuinely thought to myself, I can't have this here, or I'll never see it again. Now with the prospect of restrictions easing here, there's probably going to come a time she asks to stay again. Will I be the a-hole if I tell my husband she isn't welcome to stay for a while as I don't trust her in our home? Not the a-hole. You need to protect your belongings, but it doesn't sound like your husband is on your side, so he'll treat you like you're the a-hole. Yeah, this is my issue. I'll just have the two of them saying I'm an a-hole, like I'm expected to be okay with my stuff getting taken cause she wants it? I don't go to work every day so she can benefit. This is why God invented those sleek, go in any room, link to your smartphone, modern security cameras. Either that or get a dresser with enough locked drawers to keep everything in them and laugh at her and daddy's excuses about how insulting it is. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. The way I see it, you have two options: 1, nail everything down. 2, let her and your husband know if one more thing goes missing or is borrowed without asking, then you will be contacting police for theft. I personally would leave $20 out when she is in your residence, maybe around items she normally takes that are in semi-obscure locations. Money goes missing and you caught the thief red-handed. When I was a teenager, I tried to catch my brother stealing money from me. I left out a $5 bill that I used to pick up a dog turd with. Turd was still in it. He never looked through my stuff again. Definitely not the a-hole. But now it's time to go a-hole on her. Set a trap. But don't trap her stealing your stuff, she'll be less likely to do so anyway now that she knows you're onto her. Trap her into stealing something of your husband's. To be honest, I think my husband is part of the problem. It's just stuff is what I hear from him all the time, not just with this incident, but other things too. I think he sees it that his kids are welcome to anything he has. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for not letting anyone hold my son when he was born? This happened pre-COVID, but the fight started again about a month and a half ago. My wife gave birth to our son November 2019. She had a very complicated pregnancy and ended up needing an emergency C-section, which we were aware could happen. We had talked about it for a while and she admitted hating the thought she would be the last to hold our son. So when he was born and she was still unconscious, I did not allow anyone in our families to hold him, or even meet him really. They saw me, but that was about it. She was unconscious for 4 days, but thankfully recovered and was able to meet and hold our son. It was about a day after that everyone else got to meet and hold him for the first time. Our families were upset but nothing really kicked off, except for my mom and sister who were kinda pushy about it. Then around January we had an incident. My wife put up some photos of her holding our son for the first time and talked about how traumatic the birth had been and wanted to raise awareness of how dangerous pregnancy and birth can be, and basically just saying how grateful she was to have them both be okay. My mom and sister then really started acting like kids, saying it wasn't fair and we robbed them of those first few days with their grandson/nephew. I told them plenty of people meet grandkids and nieces/nephews days or even weeks or months after birth, and had this been COVID times, it would not have happened for a lot longer. But they said I was selfish and should not have done that, just because my wife couldn't meet or hold our baby. I am only conflicted on this because someone else suggested I robbed my son of having more interaction early on, and I should have thought of him over my wife's feelings on the whole thing, and while most of me is screaming hell no, I wanted to see what a bunch of internet strangers would think. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Definitely not the a-hole. Of course your wife should have been the first person, besides yourself, to hold your son. Good for you for sticking to your guns. Not the a-hole. This is the best thing you could have done, and a lot more fathers/wives need to do this. As a woman and a mother, I think that would be one of the very few things not forgivable. I would tell your mom and sister to pound sand and get over it, as you did right, and they are just mad you wouldn't give in to them. Anyone who whines it's not fair needs to be shut down and then ignored. What a bunch of turds. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. What? Your mother and sister need to check themselves. They think they should have the right to hold the baby before his own mother? I highly doubt your son is going to devastate it or that affected by the lack of interaction early on. No, your wife didn't want to be the last to hold him, and it's your child. You two come first. Mother and father is greater than anyone else really in this situation. I do wonder what their reaction would be if it was phrased like this to them. You think you had the right to hold our child before my wife, his mother? The just because made me gasp. Just because the woman who carried him and risked her life to give birth to him hadn't held him yet? That's a hell of a just because, and you're damned right they needed to back off and wait. Not the a-hole times 100. In all seriousness, do people really care this much to get to hold the baby first? Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for not being more supportive to my wife after our son decided to change his name? A lot has been going on with our family, particularly on my wife's side. A few months ago, her mother got in contact with her estranged daughter, my wife's older half-sister, who left the family and cut off all contact the moment she was 18. To make a long story short, some very dark things were revealed about my wife's late father that her mom hid from the family that involved her sister, and that's why she took off. The whole family knows now, and I've been trying to be there for my wife as she processed this shocking news. The thing is, our son who's 16 found out from his cousins, and he's disgusted by it. He happens to be named after her father, and my son has started telling us he wants to change his name. My son said he doesn't like knowing who he's named after, and would rather it be something else. That my wife and I could even help in picking out a new one. My wife immediately shut him down and they had a fight. When we all had a family sit down, my wife said our son was named after the good things her father did, and that's what he should be remembered by. But those actions are not something that can be overlooked no matter what other good things he did. Frankly, I'm disgusted and horrified too, so I support my son's decision if that's what he wants. My wife has been angry at me ever since, accusing me of not caring or supporting her through this. But we have had many deep conversations about this news even before our son announced what he wanted. I completely respect her feelings, but I also need to respect my son's. My wife isn't on board with this at all, and she says by allowing this name change instead of trying to change his mind, it's like I don't care about her feelings at all. Which makes me an a-hole in her eyes. We're trying to see about getting some family therapy just to deal with everything going on, but I'd like to know what others think. Am I being an a-hole for supporting him wanting to change his name instead of convincing him not to? Not the a-hole. If your father-in-law did what I think he has, then your wife really needs to sit down and think if she truly wants her son to be named after a person like that. There are just some terrible things that can't be looked over and that some good deeds cannot undo. I agree. I understand he was her father, and of course she has different memories of him. We all have a different memory of him. But once something like that is out, well, for me personally, those memories are not the same anymore. I legally changed my name in my early 20s because it never felt like it fitted who I was, and was named after the daughter of someone prominent in my country whose political views I disliked as I grew older. I can't imagine finding out that the person I was named after had done something truly awful. You are not the a-hole to support your son for not wanting to bear the name of a disgraced relative, and he should definitely change it to something he is comfortable with. Your wife may have good memories of her father, but that doesn't wipe out the stain now the truth is known about him. Keep supporting your son and engage in some family therapy with your wife and son, so that she can come to understand his and your perspective, and that it doesn't need to destroy her good memories of her father just because your son no longer bears his name. I think this is the root of it. OP needs to sit down with their wife and son and explain that the son is not trying to disrespect her, invalidate her father's good characteristics, or erase her positive memories of her father by changing his name. But it is ultimately the name and burden that their son has to carry, not her. He is the one who has to live with his own name, not her. And it is his choice whether he wants to represent someone who has committed terrible deeds, and his choice whether he wants to embody those positive traits and happy memories. If he, understandably, can't overlook whatever his grandfather has done, or simply doesn't want to continue carrying the same name as him, then that is 100% the son's right. He is not a vessel created to honor and embody the better aspects of his mother's father. He is his own individual person, and he has the right to choose whose name he does or does not carry. Not the a-hole. Your wife is doing exactly what her mother did. She trying to excuse her father's behavior or pretend it didn't happen by remembering good things her father did. And will also wind up with an estranged kid as a result if she doesn't see sense eventually. Not the a-hole. Your son's name is his, and he should have the right to be called something he is comfortable with. Your wife's feelings about this, ultimately, matter less than your son's. And that's it for this video, guys. If you have thoughts to share, leave a comment below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you like this content. I'll catch you in the next one. Good day, everyone.